All right, good afternoon to everyone. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
Yes, sir.
So let's make a start. Now, we already started chapter 7.5. We are looking at how to search for records in our spreadsheet. So, we would have learned how to use the sorting option in spreadsheet. Just a quick reminder as to how to sort. So, say for instance, you have a table and you have some data in that table. You simply would right click on any one in the column. So remember, you would usually sort a column of data, and you do not need to highlight the table. You simply select which column you would like to sort. So for instance, if I want to sort the grade column, I'm going to select a cell in that column, right click on it, go to sort, and then select which method of sorting I want. Largest to smallest, largest to smallest to largest, and it's going to sort that data. Now always remember, in a table, information in the row is related to each other. So if you sort a column, then whatever information that cell is linked to in that row is also going to move. So let's remember that for the future. In addition to that, remember we have the sort option under the data tab. We have sort under the data tab here, and we also have it on the home tab. So notice we have it here also. So basically 3 locations where we have that sort option. If you have any questions, you can let me know, anything you want to clarify. Then we went on to look at what is the how to filter, basically how to filter out information. Say for instance, from this table here, we do not want to see any particular information from it. We only want to see um, maybe for instance, who got a grade 3. We only want to see that. Well, one method of filtering is called the auto filter. Can anyone remember what's the other name? Auto filter, or
Simple filter.
very good. So simple filter. So the auto filter or the simple filter. It's called simple because it's very simple to create. You simply select a cell in that table. So you just gotta imagine this as being a table. And you select any cell in this table here. You go to the data tab and you select that filter icon here. And you're gonna notice some arrows appear in your headings. Notice I didn't highlight my table. You could highlight it and the same thing is gonna happen. But notice what would happen if you did not highlight your table correctly. Say for instance, you missed out part of your table. You only highlighted grade. You missed out this column here and you select filter. Notice the filter is only applied to this one column here. So this is a situation whereby you can highlight if you're sure, but if you're not sure, you simply select a cell in that table and let the filter automatically detect the table for you. And then using these options here, you can select the criteria as to what you want to filter the data by. So notice we have number filter here and we have all of our questions, all of our criterias here. Numbers equal to, does not equal to, greater than, less than, and so on. So if we say equal to, and we type in 3, and we select OK, notice our criteria is all grades that are equal to 3. So we got to see that information there. So you can do that for any one of these, any one of the columns, basically filter out information you do not want to see. Did I tell you guys about the asterisk? What the asterisk represents? This symbol here. that symbol, the asterisk symbol?
No, sir. Can you
All right.
Sir, as it relates to filtering, right?
Uh-huh.
No, I can't recall that.
All right. So as it relates to filtering, this asterisk, we would call it a wildcard. So that symbol there, that asterisk, as it relates to filtering, we know when it comes to a formula, that would represent a multiplication sign. But for filtering, that represents a wildcard. Now, what is a wildcard? Anybody knows? All right. So a wildcard, go ahead.
Sir, I was about to say a wild card would help you to get some within a range. Like you could use the asterisk and then like I remember you using it for a different stuff that you taught us, like an asterisk and then P. So like the stuff that have that end with P.
Right. So that's basically it. So the wildcard is basically used to represent unknown data. The wildcard is basically used to represent unknown data. So like the example that Africa mentioned, we used it already when we were doing one of the I think the count. We said basically if we did a asterisk, that basically means all names that start with the letter A. So all words that start with the letter E. And if we do asterisk A, that is basically all words ending with the letter E. So the asterisk is called a wildcard and it is used to represent unknown data. Now if we do A asterisk A, that is basically all words starting and ending with the letter E. So that's what the wildcard is used for. So let me see if we can incorporate it here. Let me add in some correct names. Nathan, Stephanie, Jason, Luciana. Good. So I can go to my filter, my text filter, and I could say begin with. Now we actually don't need to put the wildcard here because the begin with, there's already a criteria there that's already looking for that starting character. So by just putting in N, that's already looking for what is beginning with that letter N. So notice I only got Nathan here. So in this case here, we don't need to use that asterisk. But there are other situations where using that wildcard is going to be necessary. But these criteria here, they're already looking for it. Yeah, so that's basically how you use the simple filter. If anyone has any question, comments, you can let me know. All right, if no questions or comments, we are now going to move on to our new topic. So that's what we covered last week. Our new topic for this week is the advanced filter. So we have the simple filter. Now we have the advanced filter. So what is the difference between the two? The simple difference is that the simple filter has one criteria, whereas the advanced filter has than one criteria. Has more than one criteria. So has only one criteria. The simple filter basically uses only one criteria. You're basically asking only one question. Remember when we say criteria, we're basically saying question. It's like if we're asking a question. So by saying one criteria, we're asking one question simply. So simple filter is only one criteria. Advanced filter, we can use more than one criteria at the same time. Now, how do we do that? So let me just run through the paragraph to see if I'm gonna miss anything. Now, although the autofilter makes selecting records very simple, you may wish to have more control over the criteria used. You can place criteria on the spreadsheet itself and use an advanced filter to select records. You can then tell the computer the location of the record, the location of the criteria, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Da, da, da. All right, so to create the advanced filter, what do you need to know to create the advanced filter? Well, the advanced filter has three parts. One, the original data. The original data is simply the table that you are filtering. So just like how we were using the simple filter on this table, this is our original data. We are filtering this table here. Now, the second thing we need to create our advanced filter is our criteria. Now, comparing to our simple filter once again, the criteria for the simple filter is when we select this arrow here and we go to the filter option, we select the criteria here. But for the advanced filter, you have to type the criteria into the cell, into a cell in the spreadsheet. You have to basically create the criteria. And the third thing you need is the output area. Where are you going to place the data that you are filtering? So those are the three things we need for our advanced filter. The original data, which is our table, the criteria, and where are we going to put this filter data, that output area. Now, let's create an advanced filter. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to leave it there. And what I'm going to do, let me insert another column. Which good. So we have a table here, and we need to create an advanced filter. How do we do that? Notice we have the first part here already. We have our table, our original data. Now, the next thing we need to create is our criteria range. How do we do that? It's very simple. You simply highlight your headings, copy it, and place it underneath your table. Now, you can place it anywhere, but I usually like to place it underneath my table so that I can see the information as it lines up in the columns. So I usually place my criteria like this. Now, You copy the headings and you paste it here. So why are we not typing it? Why don't I just go and type in name, grade, and so on? Well, there is the possibility you could type it incorrectly. And that is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid you typing that name, that heading name, incorrectly. Because if you do type it incorrectly, if you spell one of these words wrong, the filter is not going to work. So you have to ensure that you spell each word correctly. You create the headings there correctly. So that's why copy and pasting is the method that is going to give you that 100%. You won't have any problem with that. Now, what do we need to do next? Now that we have the headings, under the heading now, we need to place our criteria. So, on the grade, I can say, give me all of the grade that are greater than 50. Give me all of the persons that got a grade greater than 50. So notice I now have my two parts for my advanced filter. I have my table and I have my criteria here. Now the third part, the output area, this is going to be selected as we are creating our advanced filter. So now let's get started with creating the advanced filter. To do that, once again, you select a cell in your table, any cell. Does not matter which cell, you're selecting a cell. Why? Because spreadsheet will automatically detect your table. So to make it easier on you, to ensure you select your table correctly, you select a cell and let the system detect your table for you. So I selected 86. Where is the advanced filter? You go to the data tab. Under the data tab, you're going to see the word advanced. And here is where we are going to start creating our advanced filter. Are you guys following so far?
Yes, sir.
Anyone with any questions so far? All right. Now, I want you to take note of this here. Notice we have two options here. Now, these two options are basically the difference, another difference between the simple filter and the advanced filter. So, simple filter, filters in place, whereas the advanced filter can filter to another location. So the simple filter filters in place, whereas the advanced filter, you can filter the data to another location. What do we mean by that? What does filtering in place mean? Well, if we put back, I want to sneeze, but it's not coming. If we put back the simple filter. Now, filtering in place is basically when we filter the information where the data is located. So basically when I filter out, say for instance, I don't want to see English, so I took off English there. Okay. Now notice I'm no longer seeing English in that table there, in the main table, in the original table. So this is what's called filtering in place. Where the data is located, you are filtering in that location, in that place. So you're no longer seeing all of the original data, you're only seeing what you would have filtered. So that's called filtering in place. Now, there are some situations where you might want to see the original, the complete original table, along with the information that you want to filter out. So that is where the advanced filter comes into play. The advanced filter will allow you to filter to another location so that you can see that main table and you can see the filtered information. So let's create it and see what we're talking about. So I'm going to select the cell here again, select advanced. Now, once again, notice we have two checkboxes at the top. Filtered the list in place, copy to another location. We're going to keep it as filter in place. We're going to try that one first. Now, underneath that, you're going to see list range and a box. Now, inside of this box is for you to select your table. Now, if you notice, it's automatically selected for you. But if you do want to go and select the box again, simply delete what is inside of this box, select this arrow, and you're going to be entering into a selection mode. Here now, you just simply click and drag over your table. So I just highlighted my entire table and click back on the arrow again. So I just highlighted my entire table here. Now, what I need to do next is the criteria range. I need to go to the next box. So I'm going to click on the side of this box here and click on this arrow here. So I'm now in the selection mode for the criteria. So now I need to select this criteria table that I would have created. So I'm selecting, notice I'm selecting all of the headings and the criteria at the bottom. Even these blank cells I'm selecting because that is all a part of the criteria. Once I've done that, select the arrow again, and that is basically it. I'm going to select OK, and notice it filtered the information in place. Notice the original table was filtered, and I'm only seeing students that got a grade greater than 50. Were you guys following on that?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So I want you guys to try that now. Try the filtering in place. So, Jason, I know you're new to the class. Usually in class, as we complete a certain topic, I let you guys practice it and send me a picture of it in WhatsApp to ensure you fully understand it. So every time in class, you got to always ensure you're joining with your computer. So,
Okay.
all right. So all of you try the simple, the advanced filter. Try the in place first and send me a picture of it in your the WhatsApp group. If you have any questions now, you can let me know. Anything you want following on. If you want me to go it over again, let me know.
Yes, sir. You can go over there for me.
All right. So now note that to undo this filter here, because remember for the simple filter, if I wanted to take off that filter, I would select this icon here. I would select back the filter icon to take off the filter. But selecting advanced won't take off this filter. This is already done. So to get back your data, you would need to undo. So you got to click the undo option. So let's create the advanced filter again. Remember the three parts you need. The first part you need is your original table, your original data. So you simply need to create this table here, your original table. The second part is going to be your criteria. How do you create your criteria? You simply highlight your headings, paste it at another part of your spreadsheet. In my case, I paste it underneath my table. And then you're going to type in your criteria. You're going to type in your question. In this case here, my question, my criteria is greater than 50. Who got a grade greater than 50? So if you notice, I placed the greater than 50 in the grade column. So that's basically like I'm asking who got a grade greater than 50. If I had typed in math, inside of the subject column, there's like I'm asking who wrote the subject maths. So that's how you create your criteria. Now, excuse me. Excuse me. Yes. So to create your advanced filter, you are going to first select a cell in your original table, any cell. Then you're going to go to the data tab and select advanced. Excuse. So in advance, you're going to keep the checkbox as filter in place because you want to use that option first. That's the first one we're going to look at. Then in the list range box, what? Give me a second. In the list range box, here you're going to see the table being selected. Now, because I checked inside there, you're no longer seeing that marching ants. So let me just delete the information. Click on this arrow and just highlight the table. Now, if you notice, the table that I highlighted has some lines going around it. Can you guys see those lines?
Yes, sir.
So those lines are called marching ants. And they basically indicate what you would have selected. So if you notice now, it's still there going around that table area. That's indicating you would have selected this table area here. So this is how you can tell if you selected your table correctly. Now, in the criteria box, you need to do the same. Now, technically, you don't need to select the arrow. You could simply put the cursor inside the box and just go straight and highlight. And it's going to work the same. And notice the marching ants is going around this criteria here. And you simply click OK, and that is how you create the advanced filter. Was that clear enough, Nathan and Stephanie?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good. So try that. Send me a picture when you're finished. If anyone has any question, you can ask also. All right. Less than 50. Okay, Oceana tried another criteria. Good. Now you can notice when you're doing your criteria, um, the row names turn blue. Anybody remembers why that's the case? Why does it turn blue?
Sir, because it's hiding the other information.
It's hiding the other information. That what you said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's blue because it's indicating that it's hiding the other information. And if you can look at it also and you've seen a double line, if you notice, normally there's a single line. So where's that double line is indicating where that row is basically hidden. All right, Gayatri got hers, very good. Africa, Jason, Nathan, Stephanie, you guys getting through?
Yeah, I'm working on it, sir.
All right,
Yes, sir.
all right. Let's see. Oceana did. Oh, so. Oh, Oceana tried the filter in another location. Very good. All right. Good. Nathan got through. Stephanie, Jason, and Africa. Stephanie, you getting through?
Excuse me, sir. I'm on my PC and I'm using Excel on Microsoft 365, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm getting to open it on the exact app. Well, I'm not getting the feature to do advanced filter. I don't know why I'm not seeing it here.
Could be because of the version. Sometimes those versions don't have like all of the features.
Like the most the series like custom sort.
Yeah, but that's really sad there. But you see, but you're not seeing anything next to filter or so on.
No,
All right. Well, you might just have to try it when you're using a computer in the lab, because this is another example. Like for instance, even for Google Sheets, if you ever check Google Sheets, yes, Google Sheet is an online application that you can use instead, like if you don't have Microsoft Office, but it doesn't have um, that advanced filter. Also, it has filters, create filter, but that's basically the simple filter. It doesn't have the advanced filter option. And the reason, and there's actually like two reasons as to why we have to use Microsoft Office. Because for the SBA, this is one area that we have to have in the SBA, using an advanced filter. There's something else we have to do in spreadsheet, and only spreadsheet has the option. Google Sheet doesn't have that option either.
I'm not even seeing the advanced filter option when I use the app on my tablet.
Yeah, you won't see it there either, because it's a bit more technical, so you won't see it in the app either. So just memorize it. Try to memorize it. What's the different parts and so on. You can try it when
Yeah, you have to get the
you
original data, then the criteria range, then output area.
good. All right. So I think I saw everyone's own except Dason. Dason, you getting through?
Sir, I'm having a bit of problems logging into my Microsoft account to use Excel.
All right.
Or so, sir, can I maybe like send it to you later once I get the password
Yeah,
to it?
sure, no problem. All right. So let's move ahead. So we're gonna try the copy to another location now. Now it's basically the same thing. You select the cell in the table. You select advance. Now, as we said, the difference between the simple filter and the advanced filter is that simple filter filters in place and the advanced filter filters to another location. So that's the benefit there, whereby you can see the original data and the table and the filtered table at the same time. So the check boxes, we're going to check copy to another location. And what you're going to notice, the last box, which was grayed out, now is open. So now we can select inside this box here. So once again, we select our table as before. We select our criteria range. And now we select copy to. Where do we want to put this information? Now, for this last box here, what I would recommend, sometimes it does work. Like for instance, if you highlight the heading like this here, it can work. But what I usually recommend, because sometimes that also causes errors, what I would recommend is that you select the very first cell that the table is going to start from. So we know that column A is the first column of that table. So we're going to select a cell in that column, any cell that you want in that first column there. And you just select that one cell. What's going to happen is that you're indicating the table should start from that cell there basically. And that's all you basically have to do. Select copy to another location, select the cell, select OK, and you're going to notice it filters out to another location. So try that one. Remember, it's simply select the copy to another location, and you select that one cell there. Same as almost the same as before. All right, try that one. Send me a picture. So once again, as before, you select the cell in the table, select advance, copy to another location, ensure your list range is highlighted, ensure your criteria range is highlighted, and you select the very first cell that you want to copy the information to. All right, great. Nathan got his. Oceana got hers. It's just Gayatri. You getting through, Gayatri?
Yes, sir.
All right, so in the meantime, she's doing that. One thing to note, like say for instance, the information in your table. So this is the, you can say this is the disadvantage of the advanced filter. Like if the information in the table updates, if I accidentally gave Nathan 49 and he was supposed to get 67, now notice the filter does not automatically update. So that's the disadvantage. So you could say that simple filter automatically updates, whereas advanced filter does not automatically update. So that information does not automatically appear in this table. So if we want it to appear in the table, we simply have to do over the advanced filter. We would select the cell once again, go into advanced, copy to another location, ensure our table is selected, ensure the criteria is selected, and select that cell there again. Now let's see what's going to happen if it's going to, now this is what I was expecting. All right, so Gayatri got hers, good. So this is what I was expecting to happen. Now notice what happens when you try to do the filter over data that is inside of those cells. It does not come out properly. It does not work correctly. So what you simply have to do is ensure that whenever you're doing an advanced filter, you clear the area. You clear your output area. So the best thing to do is highlight the area, go to the Home tab, and select the clear option, and select clear all. So what this is going to do is going to clear all of the data, all of the formatting, everything out of the cell. So now the cell goes back to default, blank, nothing inside of it. No formatting, nothing inside of it. And now we can continue working. So let's remember that for the future. If you need to run the filter again, for some reason, and you have data there already, it wouldn't replace the data that is there. It might corrupt the data. So you have to ensure you completely erase the data first and then do the filter. So I completely erased it there, and I'm going to do over the advanced filter. Copy to another location, criteria selected, cell selected, okay. I notice I got my updated information. So just remember that could happen to you in the future. All right, so let's continue. We're still on the advanced filter. Another thing about the advanced filter is that we have two types of criteria. So we have two types of criteria. We have the OR criteria and the AND criteria. The two types of criteria. So remember, the criteria is the question we're asking, greater than 50 and so on. So we have two methods of basically creating that criteria, AND and OR. Now, before we get into the two types of criteria, are you guys, all of you, clear on the how to create the advanced filter, the in place and the copy to another location?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
Yes, sir.
Great. So let's now look at the two types of criteria, the OR criteria and the AND criteria. Now, there are basically two things you need to remember about these two criterias. So what I need to do is to give me some space here. All right. Copy this here, put this here, give me some more space, and give me some space here. Good. So this is going to be the OR criteria. I'm going to make this the OR criteria, and I'm going to make this the AND criteria. So I'm going to show you the difference between the two. I'm going to delete this here. All right, so the differences between the AND and the OR criteria. So OR criteria has the criterias in the same row. I'm pretty sure I spelled criterias wrong. Correct? Criterias? Or criteria? Is it correct to say criteria? Criterion. Let's take out yes. Has the criteria in the same row, whereas the AND criteria has the criteria in different rows. So that's one difference there between those two. The OR criteria has the criteria in the same row, whereas the AND criteria has the criteria in different rows. What do we mean by that? Well, remember, the advanced filter is used for more than one criteria. So, say for instance, I want the grade who got greater than 50, but at the same time, I want English. So I want the person that is writing English also. So I'm asking two questions. Who wrote English and who got greater than 50? But why does it matter? Why does it matter if you put it in the same row? Why does it matter if you put it in a different row? Well, this is where the criteria come into play, the types of criteria. So as I said, the OR criteria is going to have both criteria in the same row. Or if it has more, all are going to be in the same row. That's how we know visually that is the OR criteria. Whereas the AND criteria, visually, it has the criterias in different rows. So it doesn't matter if the greater than 50 was at the top or the bottom, once this English is in a different row than the greater than 50. It doesn't matter which is in which. The simple fact that they're in different row, that's all that matters. So that's the first key difference there. Now the next difference is what happens when they are in different rows. So basically, the OR criteria at least one question has to be true. Or basically, it answers all questions. So let me space this out so you can see it better. Yeah. The AND criteria all questions have to be true at the same time. So that's the second difference there between the and the OR. So the OR criteria, remember the criteria is basically a question. So the OR criteria, how does it answer the question? Well, you want to say something, Africa? Well, the OR criteria, it's basically answering all the question. As the last part here in bracket I have here, is basically answering all the question. But in essence, at least one of the question has to be true. So it's going to look at all the questions, and whichever is true, it's going to answer it. Whereas the AND criteria, all the questions have to be true at the same time. So it might be a little complicated to grasp, but let me create the advanced filters and I'll show you the difference between the two. So let me create that. All right, so let me create the OR advanced filter. So I'm going to select a cell in the table, go to data, go to advanced. So I'm going to copy to another location. My list range is correct. The criteria, I'm going to select the OR criteria range. Now remember, it's just the heading and the question. Even though I typed OR criteria at the top here, I'm not selecting that. Just the heading for the table and the question. Then I'm going to select the cell. I'm going to select this cell here and select OK. Notice I have my output there. Let me create the AND now. So I'm going to select, I think I mixed it up. Hold on, I think I mixed it up. Yeah, I think I mixed it up. Yeah, I mixed it up. Sorry about that. This here is the OR. The OR has it in different rows. And the AND has it in the same row. Because the output, I could have told that was the AND. So technically, this is the AND. AND has the criteria in the same row. Sorry about that. And the OR has the criteria in different rows. So that means this has to switch also. The AND, no, this here is still going to be correct. The OR, at least one question has to be true. It answers our question. and the and, it answers all questions. So all questions have to be true. So that here is still correct. So now this here is correct. So the and criteria, both are in the same row. All the criteria are in the same row. Whereas the or is going to be in different rows. This here remains the same. Or answers all question, and at least one has to be true, and all have to be true at the same time. All right, let me create the or now, and you can see the difference in the output. So table selected, select the criteria, select the location there. I notice I got more output. So why do I have different outputs even though it's basically the same question, greater than 50 and who is writing English? Why do I have different outputs? Well, that is because of the two types of criteria. It's basically because of how we are answering the question. So let's look at the and first. The and says that all the questions have to be true at the same time. So it's kind of like if, kind of like what? I lost my thought. Either, let's come back to the spreadsheet. So the and criteria, all the questions have to be true at the same time. So what are the questions here? The questions are, who has a grade, has a grade greater than 50, and who is writing English? That's our question. Now, both of these have to be true at the same time. So if you notice our table, both of these persons here have a grade greater than 50 and they are writing English. So they're answering both questions. Notice both of the grade is greater than 50 and at the same time they have English as their subject. So that's what we mean by they're answering the questions at the same time. Both have to be true at the same time. Now, compared to the or, for the or, at least one question has to be true. At least one. But it's basically looking for the answer to all the questions, but at least one has to be true. What do we mean by that? What the or basically does, it looks at one of the question, so it's going to take one question at a time, like it takes it one at a time. So for instance, it's going to look to see who has a grade greater than 50. Now, if you notice, Nathan got greater than 50, Stephanie got greater than 50, Oceana, Africa, Gayatri got greater than 50. But Dason got less than 50. But yet his information is still here. Yet this 30 is here, even though it is false. 30 is not greater than 50. But his information is answering one of the questions. His information is answering if he wrote English. So the other question is, who wrote English? And Dason, Oceania, Africa wrote English. So that is why their information is inside of this sheet here, inside of this table here. So even though he got 30, which is less than 50, the fact that he answered this question correctly, the fact that he has English here, his entire information appeared. And this is where remembering that information in a row is related to each other. So even though we are asking who wrote English, remember the entire row of information has to appear because all of those information are related to each other. They work together. You can't just extract one piece from that row and put it into the table. It doesn't work like that. Information in a row is related to each other. So once again, we have two criteria. We have the and criteria and we have the or criteria. The and criteria, how we can tell the physical difference, the visual difference between the two. The and has the criteria in the same row. How much ever criteria there is, it's in the same row. Whereas the or has it in different rows. So that's one key difference there, how we can tell them apart. Because you won't see the heading like how I'm writing the heading. So you have to remember how they look visually. The second difference, how do they work? So for the or criteria, I said it at least one question has to be true. So if only one question was true, then you would have only seen result for that question. So in effect, it is basically looking for the answer to all of the question. That's what it's in effect doing. It's looking for the answer to all of the questions. It's checking to see which one is true and give you the output. Whereas the and, both question has to be true at the same time. It basically merges the question together. You have to be so and so at the same time. So you have to be greater than 50 and write in English in order to see an output here. And that's basically the difference between the and the or criteria. Were you guys capable of following that?
Yes, sir.
Anybody want me to go it over again, or are you clear on it? Jason, Gayatri, Nathan, Oceano? Clear or go it over?
Sir, I'm clear.
All right.
Clear, sir.
Nathan?
Clear, sir.
All right. Jason?
Yes, sir.
All right. So try both of them. Let me see what you guys get. Try both the and the or. Let me see if there's anything else. Greater than 70, English. Alright, great. Nathan got his. Oceana Guy Tree, you getting through? Guy Tree getting through? Alright. Not. Alright, great. Oceana finish hers. So let's see. Table. Chart. All right, so while Gayatri is working on that, we're going to continue ahead with pivot table. So this is going to be our final topic for tonight, pivot table. Um, so remember this chapter, we're basically, you can say we're basically like extracting information from our table, from our data in our spreadsheet. We're like trying to find, organize it or sort it or put it in some sort of order and trying to extract some sort of information out of it. That's what we're trying to, that's what we've been learning in this chapter basically. So with sorting, you're putting the table in a particular order to try to view it from a different angle. When you were filtering, you were trying to only see a particular type of data. So that's the auto filter, the simple filter. Now, another method of organizing your data is called the pivot table. Oh, I think this is the other one, whereby Google Sheets and so on, they don't have this feature also. And this is something you have to do for SBA. So this is where having a Microsoft Office is going to come into play. So a pivot table, what is the purpose of a pivot table? A pivot table basically makes it easy to summarize your data without altering the original data. So kind of like your advanced filter, but it's a bit more, you can say it has a bit more features to it. It's a bit more flexible. It can do more than the advanced filter. So the pivot table is basically a table that you use to summarize your original table. So just like how in spreadsheets, when we were learning about the advanced filter, we said we have an original table and then we filter out data from that original table. Our pivot table takes information from this original table and then we can now organize it in different manner basically without making any changes to the original. So we can keep the original as is. So let's look at how to create a pivot table. Creating a pivot table is very simple. You simply select a cell in the table once again. You select a cell in the table, that's going to automatically detect the table. You go to Insert and you select Pivot Table. So whether you select here or the top here, this option will appear. Now this option, if you notice, is somewhat similar to the advanced filter box. There's two options we're going to use. Firstly, the option at the top, that one there is for you to select your table. Now, if you had noticed, I'm going to do it over again. Select the cell, select pivot table. Notice the marching ants is automatically going around my table. So by doing that, I automatically selected my table. But if you need to select the table, it's just like the advanced filter. You clear out the information in that box and you highlight your table. Now, highlighting the table, it might seem simple now because we have a small table. But you got to imagine situations where you have a very large table. And that is where highlighting can become difficult. So this is where selecting might be beneficial to you. Now, under that box, we have two other options we're going to work with. Basically, where are you going to put the pivot table? Are you going to put it in a new sheet or are you going to put it in an existing sheet? So let's try the existing sheet first. I'm going to select existing sheet and then I'm going to select the location. So I'm going to scroll down a bit, select this cell here, and that's it basically. I just have to select the table and select where I want to place my pivot table and select OK. And this is what is going to appear. Now this is not a complete pivot table. We've just created a pivot table, but this is not the end of the pivot table. we now have to design this pivot table. But this is how you create it in a current location, in a location inside of the current sheet. If you want it in another sheet, as you saw that option, so you insert, ensure your table is selected, and once you have new worksheet selected and you select OK, it's going to put that pivot table over on another sheet. So those two options is basically where the pivot table will go. Now, as I said, you now have to design your pivot table. How do you design it? On the right-hand side, you can notice we have what is called the pivot table fields. This area on the right hand is what we use to design our pivot table, to create our pivot table. Not create, to design our pivot table basically. Now, what you're going to notice at the top, the top box is basically the headings of our table for the original table. So if we go back to the original table, notice the headings were name, grade, and subjects. So in the pivot table, notice we have name, grade, and subject. They are now called fields. So these are called fields. So what you simply have to do, notice the instruction here, drag fields between areas below. So if you notice, as I said, you're basically designing a table. And we know a table has columns, a table has rows, and a table has values inside of those, inside of the table basically. So it has column headings, it has row headings. The column and the row are basically the headings. And the value is basically the value that falls under the row and the heading. So simply, I just have to click on a field, click on a heading. So I'm clicking on name, and I simply click on it and drag it into one of these boxes here. If I drag it into the row, notice it's going to appear in the rows of my table. If I drag it out of the row and place it inside of the column, notice it's going to appear in the column of my table. So if you notice, it's like if we're designing our table. Wherever I click and drag it, that is where it is going to appear. So I placed name in the rows, and I could place grade in the values. And notice I have a table. So grade is now my values inside of the table. So I can see who got what grade. Say for instance, I don't want to see which person got which grade. I want to see how much they got for a particular subject. So notice, but notice they added it up. So I don't want it to add up. Let me see if I can fix that. Count. All right, so this example here is just showing me how many persons wrote a particular subject. So for instance, 3 persons wrote maths, 2 persons wrote mathematics, 1 person wrote Spanish. So this is another way we can summarize this table here. So this is the power of the pivot table. We could rearrange the table over and over so that we can look at the data of that original table from different perspectives, basically. I could put the grade in the row. So I'm seeing the grade there. Let me put the subject inside of the value. So basically what this is telling me, 1 person got 30, 1 person got 54, 1 person got 59. So like if you want to count how many person got a particular grade, that's also possible. So that's basically what the pivot table does. You simply click and drag on the fields and you drag it into one of these boxes here. So Once again, how do we create a pivot table? You simply select a cell in any one of the inside of the table. You go to insert, you click on the pivot table option at the top here, and ensure your table is highlighted like this here, and you select where you want to place your pivot table, either a new sheet or an existing sheet, and you will see that appear there. So that's the last exercise for tonight. So just create a pivot table for me. So let me see if you're clear on that, and then we're gonna wrap up here for tonight. Were you guys clear on that though?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's create a pivot table. Let me see, and we're gonna wrap up here. Anything could be in your pivot table. Next week, we're going to continue more in the pivot table because there's some more information we need to cover. Like we need to cover what are the types of pivot table, and then how to do frequency distribution with the pivot table, and then how to create a pivot chart from the pivot table, and so on. So there's quite a few more things to do with it. Oh, one thing to note, say for instance, you lose this pivot table field box here, this area here. Say for instance, you click the X, because remember that's what you have to use to design your pivot table. So notice when you click inside this pivot table area, that box is supposed to appear, but because you clicked on the X, it's no longer there. So what you have to do to get it back, I think if you right click, you can see the option show field list. So that's what the box there is called, the field list box. And that's going to show you the list of information there. The option is also at the top here under pivot table analyze. At the very right hand, you can see field list here. So if you click on this option, field list, that's going to hide and show the box there. All right, so what did we look at today? Today we looked at the advanced filter, how to create the advanced filter. Remember, it basically has two options, in place filtering and filter to another location. We saw that we need three things to create the filter: the original table, the criteria, and the output area. What else did we look at? We looked at what the wildcard is used for. The simple filter, the difference between the simple and the advanced filter. Simple only has one criteria, while advanced has more than one. The simple filter is filtering in place, whereas the advanced filter has both options, filter in place and to another location. The simple filter automatically updates, so that's the advantage of the simple filter, whereas the advanced filter does not automatically update. And then we looked at the two types of criteria, and or. Remember, the and has both criteria in the same row, or has it in different rows, or answers all the questions, or basically at least one has to be true, whereas the and, all the questions have to be true at the same time. And then we looked at the pivot table. All right, so great. So Sienna got hers and Nathan got his. Great. Any questions before we close?
No, sir.
All right, if no questions, that will be it for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Yeah, but sir, I'm getting to create the pivot table, but what I'm seeing is that I'm seeing like a repeat of the names
Mhm.
when you look at it.
The same name multiple times.
Yeah, like two times. Like you say, you have it one time, and then before you go to the next name, you see the name that you saw before. Like, is there two times?
Okay, could be either how you typed it in the table. Could be that they're detecting it as different names, or the filter that you create in the pivot table that you create in it automatically separating it. Either one.
All right, sir.
All right.